This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. Hi, I'm your host, Matt Goolsby. We've got a full show for you this week, and I hope wherever you're at this weekend, you're having a safe and enjoyable Memorial Day weekend out there. Hopefully you're maybe hitting the golf course or even enjoying the lake. But wherever you're at, remember that freedom is not free, and it's cost us the greatest sacrifice out there, and that's what this Memorial Day is all about, to remembering those who have given their lives to protect our freedoms. Coming up later in the show, we'll be talking with Danny Goolsby. He'll be talking about the risks retirees often forget about. You won't want to miss those three things. Larry Clefcorn will be sharing a story with us of someone he spoke with this past week. They were a high net worth individual and they listened to the show, and you'll want to be staying tuned to not miss what Larry has to talk about there. They've got a couple $1 million. There's a good story there. Mark Benefield will be talking about cancer and how Medicare might not cover all of those trips to the different specialists or the different, maybe Mayo or the different clinics where you go there. And we'll be talking with Mark Benefield, Mark at Medicare Advisors. It's hard to say. It's Mark's birthday today, of all things. Alex Robinson, he'll be talking about the importance of naming a guardian for your younger children. If you have children under the age of 18, you might want to make sure you have your estate plan all in place there, because you don't want those mistakes to be happening and have happen to you or your family after you pass away. Joshua Sikora and I will be talking about the tax bill, how they're just continuing to try and push this through, and that leads me to my monologue. And I wanted to share with you guys, this is an interesting situation here. We've had low tax rates with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act over the past 7 to 8 years. And what we've done with our clients and the people we help with their retirement planning, not just look at the investment side. And I know that the investments get all the attention. They're the ones that get all the glory. Maybe it's because you get the monthly statement and you're seeing the dollars go up and down. And I get that. That can be very emotional. But you've got to figure in the taxes. And if they extend these tax cuts, which it looks like in some shape or form they are likely to do, if you don't maximize this for your situation, you could be costing yourself or your family or your loved ones thousands and thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes. What do I mean by that? Well, let me tell you a story about Tom and Sheila. You know, Trump is trying to push this big, beautiful bill, as he calls it, through the legislature, and it's going to get all the horse trading that's going to happen with it. So we don't know all the details of it yet, but the overall theme is it's going to lower taxes for the future. Well, you have to consider something here. If you've saved in IRAs or 401ks, have you paid the taxes on those monies? No. And yes, probably taxes will be lower over the next 4 years. So is there an opportunity for you to do something about those accounts you haven't paid the taxes on? Again, Tom and Sheila's story, they want to make sure, and this was back years ago, they want to make sure they maximized the first tax cuts in Jobs Act that Trump passed in his first term. And they had these retirement accounts, and they had more than a couple million. They had more than $2 million plus in their IRAs and their 401ks. And they'd been to one of our tax classes, and they heard and saw the writing on the wall that I was showing, that taxes probably can't stay lower forever. Now, this current administration, that seems to be their goal, and that's great. But the thing about America and the thing about our political system is the government can reset itself every couple of years. So if you have IRAs, possibly, could you do like Tom and Sheila to maximize it for their situation? So they'd had over $2 million plus in their IRAs, their 401ks, and we looked at long-term tax planning. You know, there's tax planning for the year you're in, and then there's long-term tax planning. And looking at long-term tax planning, if they had more than $2 million in their IRAs or their 401ks and these pots of money that had not been taxed, their RMDs could be north of $300,000 plus when they turn that magic age that Uncle Sam or the IRS or the code says you have to start taking money out of there, whether you need it or not. And we looked at this and said, you know, Tom, Sheila, do you think taxes will be higher in the future? And they both thought, yeah, we do think taxes will be higher in the future. So we looked at rolling some of this money out, paying the taxes at the lower rate that Tom and Sheila could take advantage of, and then moved it over to a tax-free retirement account. Oftentimes, that's how it's called, but its technical term is the Roth IRA. Now, if you're looking at long-term tax planning and you're married and you have a lot of money in these untaxed retirement accounts, oftentimes something people do not share with you on a regular basis, or maybe another way to say it is it dawns on people when the moment happens, and that moment is when you lose a spouse or when maybe you pass away and your spouse survives you. That moment, then if you're going from married filing joint to single, the dollars, the room in your tax brackets, or as we call them buckets, tax buckets, they're cut in half. And that survivor, if they're having a $300,000 plus IRA, just in today, $300,000 plus RMD, the amount that they have to take out, they could be looking at north of 24, maybe even 32% in taxes. And you don't want to do that, let alone you don't have to do it if you're getting proper tax advice with your financial advice. And so seeing that their RMDs could be north of $300,000 plus, imagine just the tax bill on that alone. And like I said, one day when you lose a spouse, or maybe when you pass away and your spouse survives you, they're going to pay higher taxes. It's like a kick in the gut. If you don't have a plan, or if you're maybe confused, or maybe you're just worried that life's passing you by and you're not maximizing long-term tax planning, reach out and give us a call at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833-624-REPORT, or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com. There, or calling that phone number, you can schedule just a 15-minute chat with us by phone just to see if you could benefit, like Tom and Sheila could, from long-term tax planning. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Danny Goolsby talking about the risks retirees forget about. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. We were talking earlier about the Congress is trying to pass this tax bill, extend these tax cuts. And if you're not maximizing those things, what could you be missing out? What could you be leaving on the table as far as opportunity is concerned? So we've got Danny Goolsby here. And speaking of opportunity, we're not even looking at opportunity. This is just risks that general retirees forget about. I mean, you've got three here, right? I mean,
Yes.
this is the first one is healthcare expenses not covered by Medicare. I mean, that's true. We're going to be talking about that later in the show with Mark Benefill, that sometimes when people get the big C, that cancer diagnosis, Medicare covers at different levels. And so the healthcare expenses not covered by Medicare. Talk to us about that.
Well, so we talk all the time about tax planning. You just mentioned it in the previous block, and how important that is. And we have to do tax planning. It's going to be beneficial to do tax planning because Congress seems to have a spending problem. They can't get away from that. We don't have a tax problem as a country. We have a spending problem. And so as long as we continue to spend ourselves into deeper and deeper debt, they have to raise taxes. So what's the counter to that as these social programs like Social Security and Medicare? And one of those is they have to either raise the Medicare Part B and Part D premium, and or they have to start cutting benefits. And so what you'll see, and I don't want to take away from Mark or what they have to say there, but go ahead.
And I was going to say, I doubt you can ever take away from Mark.
Well, what will happen though is Medicare is starting to say, okay, we're going to cover less and less, which means, all right, so what are the healthcare expenses now that my Medicare or my supplement, whether it's traditional or whether it's the Advantage plan, what is it not covering this year because of some of the things that Medicare is just falling under more and more weight? So a lot of times, we as advisors, we get immersed in this and we know this inside and out, and we see this every day. But the average rank and file consumer starts to forget. They can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. They don't realize that Medicare is maybe paying less in benefits this year, which means, or the deductibles may be going up. Like I know the Part B deductible has been going up year over year, faster than the cost of living adjustment, and that's a different thing. So the first thing that retirees will forget about is what Medicare will cover and what it won't, and how that's getting to be, they're shoving more and more of that burden onto the taxpayer because, again, Medicare's coming underweight. The next one, though, is kind of hand in hand with that, and that's the long-term care. A lot of times we'll sit down and we'll visit with people in our offices, and we'll talk about what's your long-term care plan. It's not about long-term care, the policy per se. Long-term care policies can be very expensive, but as financial advisors, as fiduciaries, we are charged, if you will, with protecting our clients. And part of that protecting that client is knowing how you're going to cover a long-term care event. No one wants to talk about it. It's not popular.
I think when people see a financial advisor talk about risk, I think they probably mean, well, how much are my stocks moving up and down? And, that is one form of risk out there, but you're talking about healthcare expenses and, not covered by Medicare. And then the next healthcare expense is long-term care. That is a huge risk.
Oh, yeah. And I think back 100 years ago when I first came in the industry, I think the statistics were just over half of us, as a culture, half of us would use some form of long-term care in our adult life before we passed away. Today, I think the statistics are like 70%. So those statistics have gone up. And as baby boomers have moved through time, they're creating a bigger and bigger burden on the system. And so that shifts to us as consumers, not only in what I said about the Medicare costs, but now long-term care costs. So if you statistically are going to have a long-term care event, it's not, well, I'll jump off that bridge when I get there. That's not a good plan. And you're right. We're not just about numbers as far as the financial and returns and risk management when it comes to your portfolio. It's also about risk management with the other things. And the long-term care is a very big glaring hole in the plan. For most people haven't covered that. Fortunately, not only do we have a Medicare department, but we also have a long-term care department that takes care of that.
And you're talking about the different areas that we bring into the conference room and have those conversations around the table. It's so beneficial for people to have that conversation in real time, because that way, and I'll talk about this in my classes. In some ways, I think the retirement system is broken because it puts all the responsibility on the retiree's shoulders. They'll meet with their financial advisor, or maybe they're doing their investments themselves. Maybe they have a bank. Maybe their money's still at their 401k. That person, that company, that firm, that can't give them tax advice, or shouldn't give them tax advice unless
Right.
that firm, company, or person's licensed to give tax advice. Can't help them with their estate plan. Can't help them with these healthcare risks as far as the Medicare gaps, and then also the long-term care risks as well. There's so many different things that someone that's retiring today or that is recently retired today really need to be managing. And if they're not managing those together as a team, it's their responsibility to relay all that stuff between those professionals.
And again, completely agree. You opened in your previous block about it's about the numbers. What kind of rate of return did you get me? How do we protect ourselves from the downside? And again, as advisors, it's too important not to overlook these other areas. The long-term care is not about buying a long-term care policy. That's not the be all. That may end up what happenings. Or the question becomes is how are you going to cover that risk when that comes? Because again, statistically, it's going to come for 70% of us.
Well, and just the other day, I met with someone. They came to one of our classes. They came in to talk about their situation. They had zero investments, nothing. But that didn't mean that they didn't need help with their Medicare. They didn't need help with their estate plan. And their only asset was they'd worked so hard their whole life. They'd paid off their house. And I asked them, I said, what's your plan for long-term care? They said, well, I guess we just sell the house.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you want to leave your kids some kind of legacy? So they started working with a law firm, Eidelman Law Firm, about moving their house to where it will not count as a countable asset for Medicaid down the road. But you have to do that in advance. You can't do that when you're on the way to the nursing home.
Right, exactly. And let me just get to the third one here really quick. So the last thing that a lot of people will overlook is inflation. Now, during COVID, inflation was in the news all the time because we were having what I call hyperinflation during COVID. And depending on who you listen to, during COVID, inflation was raging close to 9% at one point. Thankfully, I don't think it's there now. But again, it's the old joke: go out and price a dozen eggs and see what that cost you compared to what it did beforehand. But inflation is going to have a big impact on what people will need in the future. We talk endlessly about the damage that inflation will cause in our workshops together. But again, we need to keep that out there in front of people. If inflation's running at, let's just call it 5%, for example, and you need $50,000 a year to live on at 65, well, just a short 13, 14 years down the road, just to do the same thing at 78, 79 years of age, you need $100,000 of income. That's what inflation is doing for you, because it's cheapening your purchasing power.
So if you guys are listening out there, watching the show, however you're getting the Retire Hour, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't really know if I have these 3 risks covered. I don't know if I have the healthcare identified or covered the way I need it to be covered. I don't know if I have my tax risk covered the way I need it to be covered. And finally, inflation. I don't know if I'm losing purchasing power. I don't know if I'm going backwards, because sometimes people that get really conservative, they make a safe return in their view, but they're going backwards and then losing that purchasing power to inflation. If you're curious if you have all these 3 risks covered, reach out and call us at 833-MAG-REPORT. You can schedule a 15-minute chat with us just to see again how you're set up for your situation. That phone number again is 833-MAG-REPORT, or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Larry Clefcorn talking about a high net worth individual that you might want to just check out what Larry's got to say. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And speaking of that, you won't want to miss at the end of this show, Joshua Sikora, one of the CPAs here, our lead tax advisor. He'll be talking about how the devil's in the details with this tax bill, and you won't want to miss his update here again at the end of the show. But we've got Larry Clefcorn here, and with the tax advice, I think that's probably a reason why we're starting to see people that have these larger investment accounts, because they're worried about the tax consequences with them, and they need that tax advice with their investment advice.
Yes, that's very much the case, and while that is worthy of putting first, then there's also the other important aspects of Medicare and so forth, and is that I like to say, I know people. Tell the client, I know people. Oh, by the way,
I know a guy.
When I say, yeah, exactly. When I say that, I mean someone who's right here in the building.
Yeah.
I don't mean someone across town. I'll get you a name. That's not what I mean,
That's why I was telling with Danny, I think the retirement system in America is broken, because the advisor, they'll go to that person for help, and they'll say, well, I can't help you with that, but here's someone I refer a lot of people to. Go have an appointment with them. That advisor doesn't go with you in that appointment to them.
No, they don't.
It's your responsibility to relay all that technical jargon, and then worse,
and then
when the laws change.
And then I think what a lot of people discover is these two people really don't know each other all that well.
Yeah, that's another thing too.
Yeah.
Like, who?
Yeah.
Who referred you?
Right.
Oh, okay. I get a couple people from him a year, and there's just that disconnect.
Yeah.
And so this is someone, like you said, this is the high net worth individual. So,
Yes.
3 million plus, 3, 5, 10 million plus.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And these people are realizing they need the tax advice with their investment advice. So tell us about this story.
Yeah, they do. And so, one of the things we've learned over the years is we can build a case for anyone. And believe me, everyone wants that tax advice and other things. So over the years, we've learned to have different levels of assets, different types of assets for different outcomes that people have. One of these areas, that, like you mentioned, is the high net worth individual who has, let's say $5 or $10 million, and they're wanting help with it, but they wonder, as a firm, is that a firm equipped to help me? I can't go to just anybody with this. And the beauty of it is, we have developed the necessary tools that high net worth people, when they see it, when we roll it out specifically, here's what we can do for you, are highly interested in it and think, my gosh, I didn't even know that was an option. And so there are some who you would say may even be interested in some alternatives, alternative investing, and others that say, yeah, leave that part out for me. I might want to concentrate on something else. So whether someone is needing a custom-made core investment centered portfolio, you may have someone else who wants other types of investments and even a longer time horizon. So I guess the point I'm wanting to make from this today is that our high net worth listeners should realize that there are places, Market Advisory Group
being one of them,
in Wichita and Kansas City, that can help them. They need to come and see what we can do for them and how we can manage a portfolio. We don't expect people to show up with their checkbook the first day. And when I say checkbook, I'm making a facetious comment regarding if they just wrote a check for all of their investable assets. That's not how it works.
It's not normally how it works.
But nonetheless, that's a silly that I used. But now, I think that you, Matt, recently explored some additional types of offerings for this category, and I don't know if you want to talk about
not just yet. The alternative investments, kind of the real estate line. We're not really ready to start talking about those things, but that is something that it appeals to, I think, the high net worth individual, where they're not looking for just the typical 60-40 split.
Right.
That the Ed Fargo or the Wells Jones, with those guys that are all over the place that can offer them. And what did I say there? What did I say? Something? Yeah. So, but it gets back to what Danny was saying, and then even what I started in the first block saying with Tom and Sheila. They had more than $2 million plus in their IRAs, their 401ks. Yeah. Those accounts have what? They've never had the taxes paid on them.
Right.
And there's going to be that required minimum distribution, that tax bomb in the future, or worse yet, if they leave this $2 million plus to their kids and they take it all at once, they're losing 40% plus in taxes because, again, these IRAs, 401ks have not been taxed. And we find that these high net worth individuals, they're not really getting the tax advice with their investment advice, are they?
They're not. And I'm not saying that they deserve more and that, than other people.
No.
But the fact is,
their needs greater.
And they need to know that it's someone who has been around the block.
So if you're out there listening or you're thinking to yourself, I don't really get tax advice with my investments. Yeah, he tells me about, we need to get more international exposure, or we need to get more into large cap. They'll give you all those investment tips, but are they really addressing all the risks in your retirement plan? And that's what Danny and even myself and Larry have all been talking about here today. If you're not sure that you have all these risks mitigated or even covered, reach out and schedule a 15-minute phone call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report, or you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com. Well, stay tuned, because after the break, we'll be back with Mark Benefield, birthday boy here. He'll be talking about how Medicare cannot really cover you the way you think. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And at the end of this show, the last segment, Joshua Sikora, CPA, our lead tax advisor, he and I will be talking about what Congress is pushing through here with their latest tax bills and their latest little additions or changes. But we've got Mark Benefield here, Mr. Birthday Boy, and I'm sure you just love me saying that again and again and again.
I don't mind 35. I'm cool.
35. Were you born on a leap year?
Yeah.
So February 29th. You look sharp today too. You must be filming TV.
Thank you. We are doing TV right after this. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Don't miss Mark Benefield on Eye on Retirement. But you're telling us this week you want to share with us how sometimes when people get the big C, the cancer diagnosis in retirement, Medicare may not cover them, or they may not have the coverage they think they have, right?
Well, it's, timely. Cancer's been in the news a lot in the last, week or so. It just got me to thinking a little bit and preparing for the show was that one thing that, a lot of on the Medicare side of our clients don't really think about, or even people that maybe have another type of healthcare plan. Sure, the plan itself is going to take care of the medical expenses, things like, the treatment that they have to have, or maybe medications. But, my job as a insurance professional is to uncover risk. And one of the things, there's a big financial risk that happens when somebody is diagnosed with cancer, even beyond the scariness of a diagnosis and what could happen, is the financial burden that it takes. I mean, people have to miss work to go to chemotherapy. They have to travel sometimes out of state for experimental coverages. There's meals, there's hotels, and how are all those things covered? And most people don't have a cancer fund set aside, in a special account somewhere.
And Medicare won't cover those.
Medicare doesn't cover any of that. They cover the doctor's visits. There are some plans, some dual plans that do cover transportation and things like that, but the vast majority of clients don't have those. And so there are policies out there, cancer policies that can be written, and especially if you have a history in your family of cancer, which a lot of people do. I think I saw a statistic the other day that 40+% of Americans will have some sort of cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. Now, we can debate on how that is or why that is or how it got there or why the pharmaceutical companies can't figure that out, or maybe they don't want to. But all those ancillary expenses aren't covered. And, sometimes we see 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 plus of expenses that clients have that they can't afford to take off work to go to treatment. And some people are choosing between going to work and having treatment.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't understand that all the expenses when they get that big diagnosis, it's not just the doctor bills. There's other bills that go along with that, especially if you have to travel, like you said, like to Mayo, or maybe another state or some whatever, and it's not going to pay for that hotel.
I had a personal experience with that just in the last year. My stepdaughter wasn't diagnosed with cancer. She had another syndrome that she was diagnosed with, and we spent extensive amount of times in Kansas City with hotel stays, meals, wellness products. I mean, everything you need, from a toothbrush to underarm deodorant to, hitting DoorDash because you don't want to leave the hospital. All that stuff adds up to thousands and thousands of dollars. And there's policies out there that are low cost that can be invested in on a monthly basis that are sitting there ready and available for you to get a lump sum. What would it mean to you if you got a diagnosis, had to miss some work, and got a lump sum of $20,000 to use however you want to use?
Yeah, they just
pay the light bill if you want to pay it.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to use it for, it's there. And if you do some planning and you're making sure that you're covering those types of issues for a very low cost, you can be taken care of very well.
So this is like an add-on to your Medicare. It's
Absolutely.
not really in the supplement, or if they go Advantage plan, it's not inside those plans. This is something standalone exterior.
Correct. As a team, and of course we represent a lot, not all, but a lot of the Medicare carriers, et cetera, both on supplements and Advantage plans. But there are other products that are ancillary to that or supplemental to that you should really be looked at. And we have cancer policies, hospital indemnity policies, dental policies. There's lots of other policies that are there that people just don't think about, or maybe they had through an employer before, but now in retirement they don't have available to them anymore. You may have had a cancer policy through your employer that the employer paid, and now you're no longer working, and that policy has lapsed because nobody's paying the premium on it anymore.
So, and then this is a little tongue-in-cheek, and maybe I shouldn't be this flippant, but so you wait till you get cancer to get one of these policies, right?
Unfortunately, that's happens sometimes. I'll get a phone call from somebody's spouse that says, Marvin's in the hospital and he's got cancer. We need to get one of those cancer policies you talked about. It's unfortunately a little bit too late at that point. Not out of the question. Later on, if he goes into remission, it could possibly still happen. But it is the kind of thing you need to think about beforehand. And if you have a lot of family history of cancer in your family, that's definitely something we should probably sit down and at least have a conversation about.
Had you had a policy that would have helped you guys cover those expenses when you traveled with your family up to Kansas City when your stepdaughter was needing care, it could have helped you pay for all those costumes you were coming in every day you came in the hospital in a different costume.
That's
for her.
True.
But,
and she's actually graduating from physical therapy on the 29th, and I think the giant blow-up pink unicorn might make a comeback.
Might revisit.
One last time on core performance.
So any last things to leave us about cancer policies, or maybe the other policies that you need to look at to cover those risks that might be lurking in your family?
These are all things that we don't want to think about. Whether it be I'm in the hospital, I'm going to have large expenses when I'm in the hospital that I need to cover beyond what my beyond what my Medicare policy might take care of. My And we don't want to think about these things, but when we do think about them, we need them, they're too late. I know I was wrestling with recently whether or not I should drop coverage on a older vehicle from a full coverage to just a liability, and thinking about that. And man, do I really want to do that? Maybe I should just keep it a little bit longer. Next thing you know, we got tornadoes all over the place. There's hail hitting everything, and you're like, wow, peace of mind. I'm glad we kept that policy.
Good point.
So don't wait until something happens to have this discussion. Let's have it sooner. Let's look at the financial aspect of it and see what it might be able to do for you. I tell you what, there's nothing more satisfying than having a call from a spouse whose family member is in the hospital with cancer treatment, and you can say, hey, thanks for letting me know, and then a week later, handing them a check for $15,000 or $20,000.
That has to be a pretty good feeling.
It is. It's a very good feeling.
So if you guys are thinking out there to yourself, I don't know if I have all my healthcare risks addressed in retirement. Or maybe you're worried that because of something you've seen happen to your other family members that it could happen to you. If you don't know if you're fully covered or if you've got those risks addressed, reach out and schedule a 15-minute phone call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833-MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can go on over to the website at retirehour.com and schedule that 15-minute chat with us by phone just to see if you've got all these areas covered for your situation. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Alex Robinson talking about if you have children under the age of 18, you might want to listen to this estate planning tip. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. It's been a couple of weeks back, but I met with a lady, a very nice lady. Let's call her Jan. Jan and I had a conversation discussing all the different areas that she maybe was aware of in her retirement plan that she needed to address, but then some of the areas that she wasn't. And we've got Alex Robinson here. And Alex, I was talking with Jan, and I found out going through kind of our process that she has legal custody of a minor. She has legal custody of her grandchild, and that needs some special attention when doing estate planning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We see that situation a lot where maybe mom and dad aren't able to take care of their children, or they have a medical condition, or unfortunately they pass away, and now the grandparents are taking care of grandkids. And if they don't have something in their estate plan like a standby guardian or something like that, where they've got a succession plan for when something happens to them, it can cause heartache for everyone involved.
So what? I know it happens to assets that don't have beneficiaries on them and assets that have to go through probate. What is, if you don't have something in place and you have kids under the age of 18 and you pass away, what happens there?
So what happens is the court takes a look at it. The court gets involved, and they are going to do what's in the best interest of the child. Now, if there is a guardian named in documents, 99% of the time, they're going to just go ahead and do that. But if there's not anything listed, even if you say, hey, this is my godparents, or, you're going to be the one that's in charge, that doesn't hold a lot of weight with the court. And so you will see a lot of fights between, the mom's parents and the dad's parents, or the mom's family and the dad's family. And they're all coming from a place of love. They're all saying, hey, we want to take care of these kiddos. And when there's nothing named, it becomes more of a free-for-all where people are spending money on lawyers, where there's starting to be hard feelings, and all of that can be avoided just by naming guardians and conservators in the documents.
So Jan, in her case, and I think it was Gerald that came to that meeting, Jan needs to set up something for, God forbid, if something happens to her untimely, this grandchild will not just be a ward of the state. There'll be something out there that spells out.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a client right now doing the exact same thing, where they are the guardian for their cousin, I believe, and he has special needs, and he's got all sorts of stuff going on with him. And so what we do is we say, all right, this is the guardian already. We're now adding standby guardians, kind of just like contingent beneficiaries.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
If something happens to her, we have other people in the family standing by, ready to take over those positions and know what needs to be done.
So now let me ask you a somewhat related question, but a different story. We're going to change gears here. Steve and Sharon, they're a client of mine. They have a special needs child. Mm-hmm. They have a child that's was born with some challenges, and that kid is not going to receive any of Steve and Sharon's assets because there's a special needs trust there. But what would happen if Steve and Sharon are gone? Who takes care of that child?
So hopefully they've named someone as guardian for that child. If they're over 18, they can still have a guardian and conservator if that's already been adjudicated through the court. And if they have a special needs trust that's already set up for him, that's probably been done. And so again, they'll figure out, with friends and family, who's in the best position to do that. And that's really kind of on them. They're the experts on their family, right? And so they're able to tell us, hey, we want, Bob and Nancy and Steve to be the ones that are those backups for us in case something happens to us.
And this is a great topic. I'm glad you brought it up, because this is something that probably a lot of people don't really have addressed, and it could just be out there a big risk in their situation.
Yeah, and it's what I see a lot of times is we meet with clients. They're in their older years. They're successful. They've done everything right. They're coming to us to figure out what their plan looks like, and then I talk to them about their children, and their children have children who are 5 and 6. And I would say, well, do you guys have estate plans in place? Do they have guardians and conservators? Do they have somebody lined up to take care of their children? Even if it's just you guys, we'll know, because they don't really have any assets. And it's more about protecting what happens in those situations we really don't want to think about. But what happens if, your child passes away and now there's nobody named in those documents?
Leaves it all to be determined, I guess, by the courts, what
Yeah.
you're saying. And, I guess don't worry, because government and the courts, they always have your best interest.
Famously.
They're always going to do what you want. They're always going to honor your wishes. But if you don't have it written out,
Exactly.
How do you know?
And it takes months and months and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, especially if both sides of the family are relatively well off and can afford lawyers. And both sides, again, it's coming from a place of love. It's just like a living will that says, hey, here's what my wishes are. I don't want you guys to fight over whether you pull the plug on me or not. It's the exact same thing. You say, hey, I want to name, whoever it is as the person who's going to take care of our children, and then everyone can come together and help out with that, as opposed to fighting over who gets what.
So are you convinced out there, if you're listening or watching, that you have the right plan for you, or are you going to rely on the government or the courts to make sure your wishes are carried out after you pass away? Well, if you want to make sure that you've got all those risks and areas addressed, reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. We'd love to have that chat with you, just again to see if you're addressing all the risks that you could have in your plan. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back with Joshua Sikora, CPA, our lead tax advisor, talking about the tax bills back on. So this just means another 4 years of the same taxes, right? Might be some devil in the details. Stay tuned. We'll be talking about that with Joshua when we return. Back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on this ever-changing landscape that's retirement. And we've got one of our tax advisors here, Joshua Sikora, CPA, to talk to us about that ever-changing landscape. You've been following the tax bill that's been sludging its way through Washington.
On again, off again. Well, here's what we know for sure. So the bill we've had, the tax law we've been operating under is called TCJA, right? Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Uh-huh.
This one we're calling OB3.
OB3.
One big, beautiful bill. So we're calling
OB3.
this OB3 for the next 4 years at least.
OB3. I've not heard that term. OB3. Why 3? I mean,
Big, beautiful bill. 3 B's.
Oh, okay. B squared. B cubed. Gotcha. Okay. Now I'm tracking with you. OB cubed.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of this stuff is going to be the same that we've been dealing with for the last 4 years. They're making permanent the individual tax brackets that we've got today. They're going to increase standard deduction, child tax credits, blah, 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 blah. Not, a lot of it's stuff we've already seen, right? But here's the kicker from what the bill we've seen is it hasn't gone to the floor of the House yet.
It's trying.
It's trying. It finally made it out of committee over the weekend, and so Now we get to watch what happens as everybody starts talking about it and the horse trading is going on, and maybe they're going to tax tips, maybe not. What does that mean exactly? Do we just start paying everybody nothing,
Tips.
and then they just get the tips, and then there's no taxes? But then, what does that do to the deficit, right? They're already talking about the bill as it's written is going to add $4 trillion to the deficit.
Over 10 years, yeah.
That's right. That's not chump change or Trump change.
Trump change. Well, when the national debt's $36 trillion,
What's another 4?
what's another 4 over 10 years? And I'm being totally tongue-in-cheek facetious.
Absolutely.
It's going to cause inflation to keep going if the government spends more than it takes in. But so this tax bill, what we've been doing over the past, I guess, 8 years, and it's hard to say, we've been looking at the Tax Cuts and Job Act to make sure people that have retirement accounts could maximize that to do Roth conversions, to move it to the tax-free side.
Yep.
This is going to almost give people somewhat of a second chance over the next 4 years to revisit this if they've not been looking at it.
Yeah. So here's the danger, right? Is that the bill is going to make the individual tax rates permanent at these, the lower levels that.
Until another government comes in and changes them.
There's the kicker, is that they're only permanent until somebody else changes them, and they can be changed at any time. So this isn't a call to say, you know what, taxes aren't a big deal anymore. Don't worry about it. If anything, it's a sign, hey, you've got, a few more years, 3 more years, let's say, to get everything, whatever tax planning done while they're definitely going to be at the rates they're at now. When next election comes around, who's to say the next guy or woman doesn't change it?
Or non-binary. I mean, maybe
That's right. It's the 21st century. Who knows where we're going?
Weird out there. But so this tax planning that we've been looking, I talked at the beginning of the show with Tom and Sheila. This is not just, hey, what can you do to save me money on my taxes this year?
In fact, it is not that, because whatever we're going to do is probably going to make you pay more taxes today, so that in the long run you save on taxes. Like you were talking about with Tom and Sheila, I bet they would enjoy not having to pay taxes on RMDs that they end up not taking.
I haven't met the person that likes to pay taxes. I'm sure they're out there, and I've met a lot of people.
We met one. We met one woman who said she didn't mind paying taxes, and we've been doing this for a while now.
Obviously, you can remember that, and I can't. Well, she didn't stand out in my mind, but so
I can't guarantee it was with you when we met her.
That's fair. That's fair. You're in all the meetings with the advisors, it seems like. But so this tax cut, if you will, for the next 4 years, and in this bill that they're trying to pass, does that eliminate the tax on Social Security?
Sort of. They're adding in an additional elderly deduction is what they're calling it, where there's like an additional, I think it's like $4,000 on the standard deduction if you're quote unquote elderly. And I don't even know how they're defining that
Elderly,
exactly.
Get my Webster's dictionary out and see what age defines
Well,
elderly.
once you hit 65, you already get a bump to your standard deduction. So I don't know exactly if they're just increasing that or if it's something additional, but we'll wait and see.
But in this bill, it does not eliminate the tax on Social Security.
No, not 100%. And it's not just about retirees either. If you own some kind of small business, there are some important provisions around here around deducting your state and local taxes, around they're going to increase that qualified business income deductions. If you pay taxes, this is something you should be paying attention to.
And looking at tax planning, when we're going to be doing that predominantly in the fourth quarter with our clients that we work with together, this is going to, whatever passes in this law is going to really have an impact on what we do and how clients can maximize that.
That's right. And so either your choice is either you go do all the studying and understand exactly how taxes are today so that you understand how the bill is going to impact it, or you talk to somebody who talks to people about this all the time.
Well, we've got that retirementtax.com calculator where people can go in and put their IRAs, their 401ks, and see potentially how much in taxes they could pay over a lifetime. And sometimes the amount of taxes are what the IRA is worth. I did one for a 60-year-old the other day. He had $1 million in his IRA. Over that lifetime, over his retirement, that account was going to generate about $800,000 in taxes. And that's at today's lower rates.
That is a spicy meatball.
Yeah, but it's. I don't think a lot of folks that are retiring or have retired or nearing retirement are looking at this tax advice component.
Because we've been told for so long, you save in the tax deferred accounts. You don't pay taxes today. When you retire, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Therefore, you save on taxes. And people who are retiring are finding time and time again that that's not the case.
So if they do eliminate the tax on Social Security, it'll probably be a different bill. But if they do eliminate the tax on Social Security, it's going to open up a lot of dollars in people's 12% tax bracket. And the people that are working with a tax advisor and their financial advisor, they're going to be able to maximize that.
That's right. So if it's not you, why not?
So if you're thinking to yourself out there, man, I really probably should be getting tax advice to make sure I'm going to maximize this OB3, the one big beautiful bill, so I can maximize this for my situation. If you don't know how, or maybe if, or even if you are maximizing this for your situation, reach out and give us a call at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can pop on over to our website at retirehour.com. Or again, that retirementtax.com is a great tax calculator. We need to move that over to the main website. Well, that's all the time we have this week. Enjoy your Memorial Day. We'll see you back here next week on Retire Hour.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.